everybody. On behalf of all of us here at True North, thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. Before we get started, just a couple quick housekeeping items. If you have any questions today, please drop those in the Q&A and we'll make sure that we address them with Graham at the end. We'll be sending out a recording of this session afterwards, so feel free to share it with your teammates or rewatch it over and over for yourself if you just can't get enough of what he has to say. In the same email, we'll also be including some information on upcoming True North webinars and paid boot camps. So if something catches your eye, be sure to register early to save your spot. So now let's talk about why we're here today. So this quarter at True North, we're focused on our legacy to modern campaign. And an important part of that is recognizing that legacy doesn't always mean outdated software or old technology. Legacy can show up as outdated processes, clunky approval workflows, manual tracking, or honestly, as simple as lack of clarity around what's next in your technology plan. Legacy looks very different for every organization, so you get to define what it means for yours. Our role here at True North is to help create clarity. We want to help you prioritize what actually matters, define what those next steps are, and move forward without feeling overwhelmed. We want you to feel cool, calm, and collected when it's time to tackle that bigger initiative and not stressed before it even begins. That's exactly what today's webinar is all about. Today's webinar is Modern Work Without a New System, Simple Power Platform Wins That Make a Big Difference. We're going to focus on a couple different things you're probably already using and tackling every day, Outlook and all of your data, and show you how Dynamics and the Power Platform can help you get more out of both without introducing a whole brand new system or massive change all at once. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to today's presenter, Graham Crouch, who is our SVP of Delivery Services here at True North. Graham, the virtual floor is all yours.
Thanks a lot, Megan. Really appreciate that, and thanks for everybody for spending some time with us this afternoon. So as Megan said, right, today is all about making the most out of your investment prior to implementation, and then some of those quick wins that you can kind of take over from your vendor, or start looking at to really leverage that investment after your implementation. So what we're going to start off here with is just a bit of some of that pre-work that a lot of our clients have asked us to kind of direct them on as they're sort of preparing for kickoff. So in the couple weeks before your project kicks off, what are some of those things that you can be thinking about that will make your project that much more efficient, that much more streamlined, and truly will have real dollars and cents implications if you do get ahead of some of these conversations, both internally and with your implementation partner. So again, these are of vital importance, especially when you're coming off of a legacy application. So I'm just going to get into them, and I've kind of categorized them around four main domains here, right? So project planning and strategic initiatives. So the kind of things are, what are you hoping to get out of your system, right? What kind of role does your vendor need to have vis-a-vis testing and change management, et cetera? Then data strategy and governance, right? Because you're getting a new system, and if depending on what system you're coming on, you might be entering the sort of realm of relational databases, and so you're going to want to talk about who's going to own the definition of a contact, right? Who's going to own the leads? Who's going to own products, et cetera, right? System design and development. What kind of is there sort of an experience that you're looking to have built out architecturally, right? Is there a development cadence that you would like to sort of adopt here? And again, these are conversations that you don't just have internally, right? That your vendor and your implementation partner should be involved in these conversations, right? Any questions that you have based upon some of these prompts, you're going to want to get in front of your vendor and have some of those key conversations, because like I said, I mean, things like data migration, in that data strategy and governance section, they can be significant parts of your project and can lead to significant costing. So getting in front of some of those complexities early is really advisable here. And then finally, what does work look like after go live, right? Where can your internal teams, where can your end users take over some of that responsibility, and where are you going to need some longer lasting support, right? Because ultimately, this is not just build it and then the vendor should be maintaining it forever. Now that scenario is absolutely possible, but obviously we want to build something that is maintainable and that seeks to give you some autonomy and responsibility in the system as well, right? So let's get into some of the more minute things here. Don't want to spend too much time, right? Because I'm sure you want to actually see some of those early wins, those early points that you can kind of take over. So I'm going to try to go through this quickly, but do want to note: reach out to myself, Megan, anybody at True North. I have this in a document format that I oftentimes disseminate with my clients. So if you'd like a copy of this to kind of inform some of your internal conversations, please reach out, and I'm happy to give this to you in a more usable format here. So first one, project planning and strategy. So what are we talking about there? Well, many firms, including True North, right? We developed a mentality that we want to meet our clients where they need to be met with testing. And so, what exactly does that mean, Graham? Well, depending on your organizational structure, you might have people on staff that have the availability and the competence to actually be a QA member of your projects, right? There is no doubt that members of your team are from a business process standpoint the experts on how this system should flow, right? What that experience should look like. What are the outcomes? What are the various trigger points? So indeed, if you're in a position to have members of your staff be a contributing member of your project team in the form of testing, then by all means, that is one of the stronger paths. But again, True North, for instance, is perfectly placed to also help you with those testing, right? Whether that's test script, whether that's the structure and administration of that, whether that's the pre-training that is often necessary to empower your QA team. And in the end, right, a lot of vendors will be in a good position to be able to do those kind of end-to-end, those parallel testing, those regression testings, albeit you're missing a very valuable piece there, which is the individuals that are actually going to be using those systems, not the implementation partner that has learned those processes, but those that have lived it for 10 years. That is still going to be missing. So I would encourage everybody to look at, is it possible to get people involved? And then once you discern whether it is or isn't, that's where you start having those conversations about, okay, True North or vendor, this is how we need to be supported here. So the earlier you have those conversations, the more prepared your vendor and yourselves are to kind of take on some of those activities. Order of development. What does that mean? Well, you might be phasing your project out. Your project might be really, really complex. You might be looking internally and saying, well, we really want to bite off this piece of development now, and then we're going to wait till next year. We're going to wait till the next release to implement this other piece. That is very important, right? Because you'll want to be transparent with your implementation partner about, okay, look, if we can show value immediately on this piece, if we can show movement here, that's really going to help me get the stakeholders buy-in and really help me, get in front of any change management that could be uniquely present in your organization. So, is there something that you want to see early? And in most situations, certainly in the Power Platform space, your implementation partner is going to be able to shuffle things around and prioritize things based upon your needs, right? And what you think would be the most beneficial for your stakeholders to see from the get-go, right? And keep in mind, just because you want something developed in the first sprint or the first iteration does not mean you can't circle back to it once you get to the fifth iteration, the sixth iteration. It's just sometimes it makes sense for various reasons to have developed this right now and then that and then that. If you have any of those ideas, be transparent with your implementation partner, and surely they'll be able to kind of make room for that prioritization. And then finally, change management and communication. Especially when coming off of legacy systems, you're going to want to address change management, right? At the end, right, we're talking about software, we're talking about processes, we're talking about technology, but at the end of the day, this is technology that serves people, whether it's your clients, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's your managers, your executives, your stakeholders, whoever it is. There are real people involved in this, and change can be difficult, right? So if you think of change management as an afterthought, if you think about proper communication as an afterthought, you're setting yourself and the system up for failure from the get-go, right? So make sure that individuals that need to be communicated are communicated. That feedback that needs to be heard is heard early, not late, where it's very costly to timeline and budget to make those kind of things. So understanding that change and change management, how we go about that, is of vital importance to whether our users are actually going to use our system after the fact and how long it's going to take to get that kind of adoption. Next is training strategy. very similar to testing. I've worked with many clients that have a change management consultant, that have professional trainers on staff, right? Because they have really complex environments and they have lots of people that are going to expect it to work in this. I've also worked with some firms that, no, I've worked with one person throughout the entire life cycle of the project, and they are now, going in and doing other work. So they simply don't have the cycles. They don't have the time in their day to uh, design a help pane, or design a fact sheet, or design a user guide, or offer training to their colleagues, right? And so it really is, what do you need there? So similar to testing, do you have the staff members that are adept at training, that like training, that are hold that sort of presence with their colleagues, so that we can have a super user, a train the trainer model? Or do you have so many users that it makes sense to have more of a podium style training, where your implementation partner or an internal staff member is leading a group of 40 or 50 people? There's a lot of nuance when it comes to training, and it's not just about who delivers it, but how they're delivering it. What artifacts come out of that, right? What is the most productive method? Do you want functional breakout sessions? Do you want a general session? How do you want to go about that? So really talk about what your colleagues and what your organization needs vis-a-vis training, and your implementation partner should come along with that and offer those that kind of methodology. Escalation and decision-making structures, right? You do a lot of the pre-planning, right? You go through these activities, you're talking with your vendor, you go through design, you talk about budget constantly, you have weekly communications. Nonetheless, obstacles can still emerge in your project. And so what does it look like to escalate issues or concerns internally, right? When maybe somebody's not participating to the level that you expected, right? Or a big decision needs to be made that it impacts timeline or budget. Who are you going to go talk to, right? Internally, and then ultimately enforcing with your vendor. Who do I talk to talk about any concerns or risks? Who should I be meeting about if there is a change request, et cetera, et cetera? So really getting in front of those, not when they're necessary, but let's prepare for what is oftentimes inevitable. These kind of conversations need to be had on most projects. Next, we move into data strategy and governance. So understanding where you're coming from. This would be probably the one area that I emphasize more than any, because data migration can be one of those things that sneaks up on projects, right? If you don't give it the appropriate attention early and often throughout, right? On many of our projects where we're, integrating 7 years of data, or 10 years, or decades worth of data, or 1 million different data types, literally 1 million different data types, that's no trivial amount of work, right? That work needs to be started not at the end of the project as you're moving towards cutover, not after all the architecture is in place, but we need to be having those preparatory conversations both before the project and throughout the project to make sure that isn't going to be the driver that makes us blow our budget by $100,000 or go 3 months over the timeline because we just simply did not pay attention to the scale of work behind data migration. So this whole theme is about understanding your data and developing plans to administer and manage and ensure clear data going forward. So number one is, how much data are you expecting for data migration? That will have a major impact on your budget and on your timeline, right? So understanding beforehand, so you can say, hey, look, I need 7 years of data. I need my contacts. I need my accounts. I need my transactions here. I need my projects, whatever those other business areas are that you need that data to be included. Understanding the scale, right? Data governance processes. Start now making rules about your new system. You don't need to know what your new system is going to look like once it's all polished to understand, okay, my sales team are going to own contacts and accounts, right? My project managers are going to own the project table, the actuals table, right? My finance team is going to be they own my invoices. So any changes to my invoices, that's going to be a finance task. Getting in front of that, especially when you are moving from maybe a more siloed working arrangement or a more siloed system where everybody kind of felt like they had their own contact lists. In Dynamics, that's not true, right? The power of Dynamics is actually this shared ecosystem where I'm working on a contact, you're working on a contact, I have this piece of information, you have that piece. We all then have a centralized cumulative understanding of what that looks like. That does not mean that certain aspects of your system should not be governed by those that have that kind of expertise, right? So understanding who should be owning them, who should be making decisions about your data. Security and data segregation, key here, right? You by principle, Dynamics is an open experience. Whereas if a person enters in, you have no security roles applied, they can see everything. Well, for many organizations, that's not acceptable, right? You have divisions in your sales team, or you have personal information about your contacts that not everybody should see, right? So really be thinking about not just what data needs to be migrated, what data needs to be owned, but also think about what is that access level, right? Where in the system should people be able to visualize, and where shouldn't they? Where should they be able to create records, and where shouldn't they, right? Next thing is regulatory and compliance considerations. If you look, obviously on the last one, when we talk about data governance and we look at data segregation, a lot of times your data segregation needs are going to be because of, industry standards, industry regulations, or internal policies. So reflecting on your regulatory and compliance considerations, and then using that information to determine, okay, well, this particular field, it's got their last four of their social. Nobody else needs to see that besides X, Y, and Z, right? And it's because you want to meet X, Y, and Z regulatory rules, if you will. And then obviously legacy system decommissioning. Why is that in data strategy? Because that often pushes the timeline for data migration. Look, I don't want to have to pay for next year's legacy X, Y, and Z version. I need to be off by June 1st. That's an extremely important date for your timeline. You might not go live until November, but you need to be off of your system on June 1st. Well, what are we going to do for the data from June 1st to November, right? Or do we need to retain a license for June to November? Understanding if your legacy system has any impact on access and on what you're going to do with your data in the future, you need to understand that in the beginning, so that the timeline, the budgets, data migration plans can all be made with those key dates in mind. System design and development. I'm going to get a little bit quicker here. Business process alignment. These projects are not just an opportunity for you to lift your current business processes and apply them in a new system. Absolutely, all day. You've got those key, you've got those powerful, you've got those salient business processes that just work. Absolutely, let's lift and shift them. But this is also an opportunity for you to consider, is that the best way of doing things? Is that the way that we want to do them for the next 20 years, not just how we've done it in the past? So taking a moment to really scrutinize your application, because if you wait for that, right, it's going to end up being more costly, because you're going to have built-in path dependency and then want to change things afterwards. Well, you've just spent money to build up, a legacy process in your new system, and then 6 months later, you're going to want to tear that down and build a new one. Take the opportunity in the beginning to say, that's a bad way of work. Well, we want to make better. That's not efficient. I have to hand this off 3 different times. Can we do things internally that have nothing to do with the system to make our new system better and work better for us with these new processes? Mobile and offline access needs. It's a very common requirement, but it is a very significant component, right? Because, cloud-based applications are meant to synchronize, via the internet, via, data services, and it's meant to kind of keep that data updated. When you are saying, I won't always have access to that, then there are a lot of architectural considerations that need to be made, right? We actually have to tell the system, download this information or upload this information the next time that person is online. That has significant impact on performance and on the to be frank, on the scale of work that needs to be implemented to meet those requirements, right? Because again, you're taking off a major assumption of a cloud-based system, which is access to data and access to internet. So that is a non-trivial part of projects that need mobile or offline access. So really be considering that. And again, we're not talking about, can I open this on my cell phone? We're talking about, can I open it on my cell phone without any data connection, right? And the last thing is licensing and cost. Have those conversations early with your vendor. Why? Well, because licensing costs change frequently, right? So you'll want to stay ahead of those, right? You'll want to make a decision on when does it make sense for me to buy my entire user base's licenses, right? Because you don't want to carry all those license costs while you're implementing. Why do you need 60 end user licenses when you got 5 people working right now? You don't. But there is a time where you want to be proactive about that. A little tip and trick here: do it before you get into your data migration plays. Why? Because in the Power Platform, licenses actually lead to database entitlements. So if you go ahead a month before go live, not 2 months or 10 months before go live buying all those licenses, but if you do it just before go live, what it does is it gives you all sorts of database entitlements. So instead of having like 5 gig of data storage entitlements, if you buy all your licenses, you very well could have 50 or 100 gig. That becomes important during data migration, where you want to do test runs, right? You want to see, okay, how long is it going to take data migration to come in? You've got to have a space to store that in order to do those kind of activities. So there is some value in going ahead and buying those licenses about a month, 2 months, really to coincide with some of your benchmark testing with data migration. Next one, post go live and ongoing support here. So again, get in front of what your organization needs in the long term, right? Maybe you've hired somebody, a Dynamics professional, to maintain this system after the fact, right? And maybe your intention is to work with your vendor over the coming, months to really offboard some of these things. But understand what your organization is going to need to be successful early in the project, during the project, and ultimately after the project. And what is that strategy, right? Do you use a help desk? Are you going to escalate to your vendor for tier 1 support, or is it just going to be tier 3? Really understand what it's going to be, what it's going to take to be successful after the implementation is done. And then ultimately define how you're going to know and how you're going to be able to communicate to your stakeholders and your project sponsors that this project was successful. So what are those key KPIs around adoption, efficiency gains, system usages that you can then know yourselves, and then obviously communicate to your organizations? See, this money was well spent, because now look at what we've done to our case submission process. Look how much quicker we're getting emails out. Look how many people I can reach out to as a sales associate in D365 Sales Hub, now that Outlook is connected and I don't have to go between my sales system and my email to kind of get these out. Look at all these campaigns that I've been able to send out from a marketing standpoint, instead of going to Word and using MailChimp and all sorts of other systems. Understand what success looks like, and be very communicative so that your vendor, your implementation partner, can drive towards those things. Okay. If you do have any questions, you want to see this, you want to use this, you want to take this internal, I'm happy to share that document, like I said, in a Word format, to inform your next projects, to inform some of your thinking and some of that preparatory work. But now let's get into the fun bit, which is, okay, now we've gone live, and regardless if whether your vendor is still present, you're offering support, there are some things that I just recommend you start getting comfortable with, right? Because again, instead of submitting a support ticket and saying, hey, can you set up this person's Outlook account, I'm going to show you today how to quickly do that, so that you don't need to escalate to your implementation vendor, but you can take some of those things in-house, right? And we're going to look at some data. We're going to look at some data functionality as well, because like I said, data migration is extremely important to a project. And there are certainly scenarios where you should not go live unless you have a plan for X, Y, and Z. But also 100% data clarity, making sure that over the last 20 years you've entered in Massachusetts in many different ways: Mass, MAS, MASS, MA, all sorts of different abbreviations. Don't let those kind of scenarios stop you from going live, right? Don't let that last mile prevent you or extend your project for months and dollars, right? Because there are out-of-the-box functionality that's going to allow you to clear your data from day one, and therefore establish better project governance going forward, without holding back your project, without holding back your teams. So I'm going to show you those easy wins as well. So let's get into it. So first thing I want to show you is just how much Outlook integration is less an integration anymore, but rather a setting. And the reason why that's important is because for a lot of organizations, right, leveraging an existing Microsoft investment is one of the primary reasons that you choose D365 here, because you want the things like SharePoint and OneDrive and Outlook and Word and Excel. You want that to all be in the central place, right? Well, don't wait for a implementation partner months afterwards to do that for you. This is very low-hanging fruit that if you hire new people in the 2 weeks after your project, you can do this yourself. And not only that, but once you've empowered your users to have Outlook integration, I'm going to hint at a few other things that are open to that user and open to yourselves as organizations here once you do enable Outlook integration. And that's what the boot camp that my colleague is going to give in another month or so is going to go into. So I'm not going to walk you step by step through all of these, but I'm going to show you the power behind them and the speed in which some of these things can be accomplished. So again, I'm an administrator in here, and to connect Outlook to D365, you do have to have some exchange permissions. So that might not be all of your end users. You may still have to look internally and say, hey, IT, colleague, can you enable this for me? But I want you to understand how easy it is in the end, right? So what I'm going to do is I have somebody that I'd like to integrate their Outlook mailbox to Dynamics. All I'm going to do here as an administrator is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go to advanced settings here from my cogwheel in the top right. It's now going to open the Power Platform environment settings window, which again is usually only available to your administrators. Although, if you've got power users that you trust in this capacity, you can absolutely enable this ability very easily. I'm going to come to email configuration here. I'm going to go to mailboxes. Now, every user in the entire system, when you onboard them as a user, they get a mailbox. That mailbox is not turned on by default, right? Meaning it will not integrate with Outlook by default. But again, as an M365 user that all Dynamics users are as well, the system already knows that person has a mailbox, right? It's just not turned on. And this is how easy it is to turn on things. The first thing that you do is you select a mailbox. Right? First thing you're going to do is approve the email. What are you really doing there? All you are doing to the system is you're confirming this is the email address. That's all you're doing when you go approve email. Okay, most everybody can do that if they have a system admin or a system customizer security rule. You can approve email because again, it's a very low threshold of what you're actually approving. From there, once it's approved, right? So that takes only about 30 seconds or so to approve. Now, this is where you might need an Exchange administrator. So you need permissions on your Exchange system. What you're going to do here is you're going to want to test and enable your mailbox. So what that is going to do is that's going to test a send. So it's going to send on behalf to make sure that your email address in Dynamics can send emails. It's also going to receive an email as well. So it's going to test, it's going to try to hit this mailbox and make sure that you can receive that email to your mailbox as well. Now, it's key to understand here, by doing all this work, you are not replacing Outlook at all. This is a shadow version of your Outlook. So anything that happens in Dynamics also happens in your Outlook. Dynamics allows you to send emails and receive emails inside Dynamics without ever having to go to Outlook, but it's not replacing Outlook. It's basically just showing you artifacts from your Outlook here, right? So do not think that this is replacing your Outlook in any way, shape, or form. It's simply allowing you to connect your business system with your email system. So you can confirm that this is all done. Your users can confirm this with you by simply going into their mailbox. They're going to get this email. So anytime you empower a person's mailbox, they're going to get this mailbox, this email message from Dynamics when it's successful. So you can see here, it's just confirming that your mailbox is now connected to Dynamics. We're talking about 2 clicks here. So again, you're approving the email, and then you're test and enabling. Once that is done, you should be able to send and receive emails into your system. And that's where we get really fun here. Because once you've done this, you now have the prerequisites done to also be able to leverage D365 in Outlook, where from your Outlook interface, you can come in here. You can use your add-ons, and this is again in our boot camp. We'll walk you through step by step how to do that Outlook configuration, and step by step how to enable this functionality as well. So you'll have the ability here, allow, to, while you're in Outlook, you're going to be able to create records at your manually. You're going to be able to discern, this is an email that's important for my business objective, this, or a case I'm working on, or a lead I'm working on, or this person, I want it to be a contact in my database. By setting up Outlook integration, you now set yourself up to be enabled D365 for Outlook, which then allows you to convert this email into an opportunity, into an account, into a contact, into a lead, into a number of different things from your Outlook into Dynamics, right? The second thing you're going to be able to do, and probably more powerful here, is you're going to empower a user to go to their personalization settings here, and they're going to be able to tell the system, I want you to automatically bring those emails in, right? Say this is a group mailbox for your sales team, right? Or a group mailbox for your customer service, or a group mailbox for your finance team, right? When they get, concerns, or when they send out invoices. And so you want any return, right? Any reply to that email, you want it to automatically be in your system. So then it can be added to a queue for any number of people to take that email and then be able to complete work in Dynamics. By enabling Outlook integration, you're empowering your users to do this, which is to come to their personal settings, go to email, and say, you know what? Automatically track emails. I don't want to have to go to Outlook and click D365 add-in. I want that thing to automatically come in and create a contact. Or I want it, you know what? I've got Joe Schmo in my system. Joe Schmo just emailed me. I want that email against Joe Schmo's profile so that my colleagues can see that Joe Schmo emailed us. You got to set up Outlook first, and then you're going to empower your team to say, hey, look, automatically track any email message that's in response to one that I've sent from D365. So if I send you an email from D365 and you send it back to me, I want that automatically in there. I want it automatically attached to that contact record, to that case record, to that invoice record, whatever it might be, right? You can also be more discerning. You can also just say, only if I email a lead, a contact, or an account. If I do any of those three things, if that lead, contact, or account emails me back, bring that email in. Not every email, but those three types of emails. Last, I can say email message from D365 that are email enabled. So that means, say you have a bit of a custom system, right? Maybe you have a couple business specific entities that you created during your implementation. And one of those entities has a timeline feature, right? Where you have your tasks, your emails, your phone calls, all of those kind of good things. Well, maybe I only want emails to come into my system if I've sent an email from that particular custom table as well. You can set that by email messages that are email enabled. So again, other tables that have email enabled against them, or ultimately, you know what? I want a segregation between my Outlook and my Dynamics. I can select no email messages. Again, none of this does anything if you don't establish that connection between Outlook and Dynamics. So again, in the bootcamp, we'll walk you through all sorts of different all the preparatory steps of enabling Outlook for your users, how to set up D365 for Outlook so that you can make that determination of this is a lead, this is a contact, this is a case from your email, and ultimately how to empower your users to say, go ahead and bring in all of those emails from my system, or go ahead and make appointments come into my system. So if I make a calendar invite, I want that to be in Dynamics as well. It all starts with enabling D365 Outlook integration here, which, as you can see, is a very quick step.
Graham, we do have one question, actually, if I can interrupt you for 1 sec. I think it makes sense to address it here before we move on. So the quick question that came in is there a way for a system administrator to enable these mailboxes in bulk if they have a large number of users?
Yeah. Absolutely. Great question. I'll just show you how that can be done. Let's go all mailboxes here. So if you select multiple here, all those same, if you're in a dynamic system, this is a contextual command bar, right? So depending on what you do here, if you navigate over here, this whole command bar changes. But one thing you'll notice here is that I can select any number of mailboxes here, and I can approve them in bulk. I can test and enable them in bulk. So any of the functionality that I demonstrated just now, you can do it on one mailbox or 50 mailboxes. The only caveat here is this is asynchronous. So the system is going to wait for resource availability, right? As part of your tenant, Microsoft gives you power, resources, components, right? Depending on what the system is demanding. So what that means is when you enable 50 mailboxes, it's going to wait for the right time. So it may not happen right then. It will happen within a reasonable amount of time, around 10 minutes or so. But it does not want to impact the performance of your users that might be in the system. So it waits to the right time. So that's the only real implication, is that you do it in bulk, you will naturally be waiting a little bit longer because it needs to wait for the perfect time there. Hope that answered. Yeah, absolutely. Hope that answered the question there. So the next thing that I want to briefly show you is just some of the power that you get once you turn on Outlook. So I'm going to briefly talk about email templates, because again, you've set up Outlook, you've set up Outlook integration. You've set up, D365 for Outlook so that your sales team can go to an email from Joe Schmo, says that's a lead, let me bring it into my system, or they can go to their personal setting. They can say, hey, look, this is a shared mailbox for our finance team. I want every email in. All of those are there. But one of the things that I find are often missed is, for most of our businesses, right, we have standard emails that we send out on a daily, on a weekly, on a semi-regular basis, and it looks the same every single time. I find a lot of organizations have gotten in the habit of, they save it in Word, then they copy and paste it into an email potentially, or they rewrite it over and over again. So even though it's a template, or even though it's something that they do all the time, they constantly are doing, double entry or reworking it every time, or not utilizing the templating features in Dynamics. And it's not just about reproducible things, but there's also features within the email templates of Dynamics that allow you to be a little bit more, stakeholder facing or client facing or colleague facing by bringing in information that's in your system. So things like, hey, I'm going to send this to 10 people. I want the email to automatically have the person's first name. You can do that via templates. Hey, look, this email template always has this attachment. You can do that via templates, where you just go add new email, apply template. It automatically has the attachment that you need to send out there. So leveraging email templates. I'm going to quickly show you how that can be done here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my main interface here. I'm going to go to personal settings, and you're like, why is this in personal settings? Because you can create templates that are used by all of your colleagues, by a subset of your colleagues, or only available to you personally. So again, I've gone to my personal settings area. I see there's something called an email template. I'm going to come to my email templates. These 53 you get out of the box. So you sign up for Sales Hub, you sign up for customer service, you use Customer Insights Journey or Field Service or Project Operations, you get a whole suite of email templates just from installing the system, right? But what if you want something a little bit more personal, a little bit more unique to your organization? What you're going to do is you're going to, again, access the email templates in your personal settings. You're going to go new. Going to say start with a blank template. Again, if you have already been utilizing templates, you can say, yeah, I just want a different version for people that live in Wisconsin. So I'm going to use a template there. I'm going to just add a little bit of text for those people that live in Wisconsin. But in this case, I'm going to start from a blank template just to kind of demonstrate some of the functionality here. So the first thing is I need to give it a name, right? So I'm going to do new contact template. I'm going to say permission level. Again, am I just making this because, you know what, it's my job to reach out to contacts, or am I a representative or a manager or an executive over a wide team? Maybe I want to make that organization available so that my colleague can access this template when I'm done with it as well. Or maybe it's just something I need to have. So I'm going to use individual here. Now, when it says category, what it means is where in the system do you want to be able to use this template? Because that is very key. These templates can only be used within the context through which they were designed. So if I make a case template, it can be used to send emails to cases, right? If I have a contact template, it can be used to send emails to contacts and accounts, etc. Any of the lists here that you see here. So I'm going to do a nice, easy contact template. It's going to be most of our clients are in English, but we do have a couple bilingual systems as well. So you can make templates in other languages if that does service your need here. I'm going to go ahead and create. And I don't really need to worry about any of this. This is just metadata about my particular template. But what I do need to do here is I need to get to business, which is basically I'm just writing a new email, right? So I'm going to say, new contact, welcome. Again, when I use this template, it's always going to show me that information. Now to the designer. Now, obviously, the designer is a rich text designer, so you can be highlighting. You can add links. You can add images. You can do indenting. It's a full suite of functionality there when it comes to crafting this email. But I really want to highlight an important aspect of this and what I think superpowers this ecosystem, which would be the dynamic text. What does that mean? It means that when I go and use this template on my contacts, it can automatically take data from the contact, any data on the contact, and it can strip it into the email that I'm writing to that contact. Where I use this most often is for the introductory statement, right? So, good afternoon. But I want to use a person's first name. I want it to be personal, right? I want it to be reflective. I'm just not sending a bulk email. I'm sending it to people. So I want their first name to be in here. And I want it to be, if I'm sending it to 50 people, I want each email that I'm sending to have that person's unique name, right? It's just that personal touch. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go insert dynamic text. It's going to open this up. This is a very, very simple sort of search environment. I'm going to say record type. I'm not going to pull anything from the user. That would allow me to pull information from my record, right? So maybe for your signature at the end, right? You want to say, hey, look, sincerely, then add your username, for instance. Or maybe you want to reference their business. You're sending it to contacts, but contacts relate to accounts. So maybe you want to strip something into a contact email that is related to their parent business, for instance. In this case, I just want to bring in somebody's first name. So I'm going to click contact. And now I can choose, like I said, any field that is on the contact, and it will bring it in to every email. It'll bring that in uniquely. So again, I just want this person's first name here. I'm going to come in here, click first name. I'm going to click insert. So now I'm going to quickly save this. So I've just had good afternoon, contact, first name. Go and save this. Maybe close. I'm going to come back to my main Sales Hub area here. Go to my contacts. Go to my contact record here. I'm going to go to my timeline here, where again, now that I'm integrated with Outlook, I don't need to go to Outlook to write Graham a message, right? There's power because Megan needs to come in and check on Graham's profile. She has a bunch of information that she finds necessary. Wouldn't be helpful for collaboration and cooperation that she knows that I emailed Graham. Well, yeah, absolutely, right? So what we do is we send the emails right from here. And again, not replacing Outlook. It's going to be sent from my Outlook mailbox. I just don't have to leave my system to do that. So I'm going to come to my timeline. I'm going to click add new activity. I'm going to go email here. It's going to open up a little window here where I can begin crafting those ad hoc emails if I want to, right? It already knows that I'm sending from a sysadmin account. It already knows that because I was just on Graham's account, I clicked add new email, I'm going to be sending it to Graham. But you know what? I don't want to have to write this email over and over again. I want to use a template. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go insert template. Going to open up a window here for me to then find the templates that are available to me. You can see there's a number of templates. Most of these are out of the box, but you'll notice here's my template here. So I'm going to go ahead and select it here. You can see it's going to give me a nice preview. What's it going to look like after I apply this template? So I already know it's going to work because it's already bringing in Graham's information. So I go apply template, right? Has my subject, has anything that I've added to that template. If I add an attachment, it's automatically there. I mean, again, for long or emails that you send every day, this can save minutes on a person's day, and that in the end you can have tremendous value, especially if you're an organization that communicates to your stakeholders, your staff members, or your clients frequently. These templates can really supercharge you to get things done quickly. Okay. You can use all these templates in any automation that you have. So whenever this case closes, right, we've done some customer service, the case closes, automatically send my case closure email template. You can use templates to do that, right, as well. You can say, hey, call that template, send it for them. So templates are really powerful and often overlooked. I know we're over time. I'm gonna just keep on going because I got some other really cool things to show you. But again, anything that you want to talk about more deeply or any questions you have, feel free to add them here, and we'll definitely make sure to reach out to and get any clarification to you or any next steps for anything you might have questions about. I'm gonna just keep on flowing. So the next thing that I want to talk about is data clarity, right? And oftentimes, right, you get to the point of go live or you get into the cutover activity and you realize that, you know what, we categorize Massachusetts this, 4 different ways for the last 20 years. And my data's dirty when it comes to addresses. Should we stop our project? Should we look, everything else is good, but like that's serious. I really need my data to be clear. There, like I said, there are scenarios where you should absolutely not go live with dirty data. But there is a discussion to be had because Dynamics does have out-of-the-box ways of cleaning already dirty data and also preventing data in the future from getting dirty. So I'm going to just review those quickly. So again, as a system admin, or more importantly, somebody that's empowered to do these, and this is why establishing governance is important, because then whoever is the owner of your contacts, they should be tasked with making sure that it's cleanly, right? That if we are using state or address as an important business artifact, that we have some standard structure in there so that in 10 years, you don't have to redo these kind of activities, right? So, and this is where we're going to empower those people that are owners to kind of keep it cleanly. So again, I'm going to come here, I'm going to come to my advanced settings, right? When I go to my advanced settings, there's going to be a whole tab called data management, right? I'm going to click on data management. Now, again, you have to first of all enable this, right? This doesn't necessarily it's not necessarily meaningful for everybody, but it can be extremely powerful. So if data clarity, data governance, data hygiene and sort of residual issues are something you want to address, this is absolutely something that you should turn on. Again, it's a setting. So I'm going to come to a duplicate detection settings. All I'm going to do is make sure that it's enabled, right? Yes. We talk to a lot of people on a daily basis, and it's very common for us to potentially talk to the same person multiple times. We want to make sure that our sales staff, our customer service staff, our business staff that does X, Y, and Z doesn't enter in James Smith 47 times just because they've talked to them individually. We want people to be made aware that that already exists. So I'm going to turn that on. Then I'm going to tell it when to work. Well, when a record is created. So, I'm going in there and creating, Jason Smith in the system. When I click save, I want to be notified that, hey, Jason Smith already exists. Give me the power to say, well, that's Jason Smith Jr. and that's Jason Smith the fourth. Those are different people. Go ahead and save. But let me know just in case, right? When Microsoft Dynamics for Outlook goes from offline to online. So again, your staff is using this functionality. This is in Dynamics, right? They're writing to Dynamics here. Do you want duplicate detection to warn them here in Outlook? Yeah, I do, right? So I'm going to go back here. And then during data import, well, you know what? We've got some other systems that we use. There's a federal system, there's a state system that we need, and they give us data extracts all the time. We don't want that extract to lead to duplicates for us as well. So whenever we use the out-of-the-box data import functionality, also check for duplicates there. That's all I'm doing. I'm priming the system here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make rules, because for my organization, a unique contact is somebody with the same or is with a different last name, an email, and birth date, right? For instance, I've had several situations where couples use the same email address to handle issues in a client system, right? So sometimes they will have the exact same email address. So emails aren't always unique. So again, every organization has their own definition of what a contact is or account is or what have you. And so out of the box, you do inherit some duplicate detection rules. So Microsoft already gives you some of these. So things like, you know what, if account is created with the exact same website, chances are that's a duplicate. Let's warn people. Again, that's only a warning. It doesn't prevent it. It warns people. It puts the power in the user's hand to say, yes, but that's a subsidiary company that has the same website. Go ahead and save that. Accounts with the same phone number, email address, the same name, contacts with the same email address. Again, I don't find that to be strong enough. I want something that actually combines the contacts that have the same email address and the same first name, for instance, right? Joe Schmo and Joe Smith should not have, they might still have the same email address because they're partners, but they have different last names. So those are unique contacts. So again, you inherit some of these, you start working through them. I'm going to just go ahead and create one that has a combo of these things. So I'm going to go new. Okay, I'm going to give it just a brief rule. Now I'm going to go to a record type. So it's going to specify, where do you want this rule to apply? Well, I want it on my contacts, right? So I'm going to go, what is the base entity? You can do duplicate detection rules across your entire system, right? Any entity that you have, as long as you configure it that way. So I'm going to go to contacts. Okay. Matching record type would also be a contact. I'm going to add some of my criteria. So again, if email is the same, email as an exact match, and when first name, match. Go ahead and save that rule. Yeah, well, I did first name here, first name and email. So this is going to be and here. So I'm going to go ahead and publish this rule. So now what I'm going to do is just kind of demonstrate this in place here. I'm going to save and close this. I'm going to go back to my main system and kind of show you what that looks like and why this is a prerequisite step for the data cleanup or the data hygiene activity that you might do. So now with this on, what this is going to do is anytime I try to create a contact that has the exact same email as another, as well as, so the exact same email and the exact same first name, it's going to prompt me to check on that. So I'm going to go back to my activities here. I'm going to go back to my contacts and find a good one for us to check here. So I've got Graham Crouch at my email. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another one. I'm going to say Graham. I'm going to do Smith. I'm going to present the email. So you can see here, now it hit on the fact that, again, I have the same first name and I have the same email address. In most situations, that's a duplicate. But like I said, this isn't going to do anything for you. It's just going to warn you, right? It's going to prepare the person to make a decision on this. Because again, there are many situations that I've worked with where, again, same last name and email is not the same, or is not a duplicate, because a partnership, right? They have the same email, they have the same last name. So that didn't mean it was a duplicate. So again, this is just putting it into the hands of your users to say, be really careful, because obviously we don't want duplicate entry in our system, but ultimately we leave it up to their authority. So I then can ignore and save. Or if I'm given permissions, now this is permission based, I say, oh yeah, this is a duplicate, and I want that contact ecosystem to be merged together. So a duplicate can mean, okay, don't create them, or create them and bring them together. So it actually merges. You don't lose any of the information. You're not saying, hey, that was an irrelevant action. No, it just means we were already doing stuff. We did stuff with this account as well. Let's make sure that we're not going to lose any of them. Let's merge them together. So that's also a feature with duplicate detection that you can turn on and off, right? Duplicate detection will give your end users the ability to discern that, whether or not they can merge that, because there's serious implications of merging it. You're deactivating one, you're combining them into an ecosystem. You want to make sure the right person is able to do that, because again, a contact ecosystem can be huge in your system, and you want to make sure that any work that's being done there in terms of merging is done by, again, the owner of those records, people that really can make that sort of authoritative claim. So what does it allow us to do after the fact? That is us being proactive about our data, right? From here on out, I'm not going to create duplicates that have the same first name and the same email. Yeah, but you know what, Graham? I just went live with my system, and there's a bunch of stuff that is dirty already. We didn't want to spend another 3 months on this and, another $50,000 to clean all of our data. We're going to do that over time. Once I have in my system what a duplicate is for me, I can also start doing duplicate detection jobs. And what I mean by that is, after the fact, after data is in your system, you can start proactively cleaning that up. So what we would do here is we go to data management. We already have the settings turned on. We already have the rules that we need to apply. Now, overnight, I want you to scan my 10,000 contacts, and I want you to tell me which ones are duplicates, right? And so that tomorrow when I log in, I can begin my work of merging them. I can begin my work of deactivating them, etc. You got to have your rules in place, because this job, all it's going to do is enforce that rule. It's going to scan your database whenever there's enough space with your resources. So that's why I'd advise that you do this overnight. It's going to go and it's going to check all of your records against that. So instead of proactively, it's reflecting on your already existing database. So again, you come in here, you specify the job, you specify the records. You can do all your records. You can do your records that are only in a view. You can do a subset of your records, whatever you'd want. And you're going to come down here. You're going to specify which duplicate or which rule that you want to apply, and then simply put, when you save and close this, it's going to schedule this to be done. As you can see here, you can go ahead and schedule it to be done every 30 days. These are kind of set it up, tell it the rules to apply, and it will run, and it can email you the results of this in the morning, so that you or your staff can begin cleaning that up and making sure that your system is clean or hygienic after the fact here. Okay. And then the last one that I was going to kind of touch on as sort of a bonus, but since we're already way over time, I'm gonna do it anyway here. And that's when I'm gonna talk briefly about this button that you might be seeing in your system that allows you to quote unquote visualize things in Power BI. For most of my career, and indeed I would imagine in most of your all's experience, or certainly your end users' experience, anytime you needed a report or a dashboard or a visual, you had to go to IT. You had to go to your vendor, your implementation partner, and then they would turn it around, sometimes really quickly. I'd have it the next day. But nonetheless, I'm waiting, right? I'm waiting for that document. I'm waiting for that experience. Well, since Microsoft did a better job of integrating Power BI into their Dynamics suite, we now have some little bit of functionality that puts some of that power back into the end user's hands. So all I need to do is know how to query my system. So I'm going to come to any one of my views here. So I'm just going to do it on accounts here. I'm going to start with all accounts. I'm going to say, you know what? this looks great. This is great information that I want to see visualized, or I want to see in a Power BI report or what have you. But you know what? One of the things I also want is I want the state to be there, right? That's valuable information. Now, once you do that, right, and all you do is you go to edit columns, add columns here. You can add from related entities, or you can add from that main entity, as you very well probably know. I'm going to go and I'm going to find that state field. So again, your first initiative here is really understand your data structure. Understand, I want state. I want state information. What's the field that holds the state information? Once you know where your data is located, creating views and creating these dashboards are going to be super easy for you. You know, your ability to do that sort of analytics, that slicing and dicing is supercharged once you understand where your data lives and what those fields are called. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my address one. I'm going to go down to state and province. I'm going to click it there. You know what? It makes sense for it to go city then state. I'm going to move that up. I'm going to go ahead and apply. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm literally giving myself the ability to filter and sort, like you've always probably known how to do, right? You can sort it, you can, sort it by A to Z, you can filter by only Washington, etc. Yeah, that's using out of the box. That also has power when you're trying to transition this into a Power BI report. So you'll notice I'm on a view here. I have in my command bar, visualize this view. What the heck does that do? This is what turns this view here into a consumable Power BI report that might help you in your presentations or your discussions with colleagues, or generally, maybe you're just a visual learner and you like to dissect your data from a visual standpoint. Click this button, just see what it does for you. Again, you do need to have Power BI premium licenses, or if your organization has E3 or E5 licenses, you're going to inherit Power BI privileges as well. But you do need to have access to Power BI. I'm just going to click visualize this view. Now, keep in mind, what I'm about to show you, I did not develop. Nobody on my team developed. The system developed this ad hoc for me, right? And you're going to see here, it's going to prompt me here, pre-select your data. If you were doing this on a massive table with lots of records and lots of columns, you may want to say, okay, I will pre-select data. Why? Well, because it's doing a data query for you. So the more specific you can be off the jump means the quicker it's going to reflect that and get it in front of your hands, right? So you can see here, I did not create this. I did not create this. This was created for me automatically. And if I want more information, so, okay, I've got the city, the count of address by city and by state and province, but I want more functionality around the city. I want the names included in here. On my right hand side under your data, you can include any of those fields, any of those columns that you had just added to your view automatically. And is this the same? Does this signify what a Power BI expert could do? Absolutely not. But do you need IT intervention to do this? Absolutely not. Right? And again, it's just as interactive as other areas, right? You can select Washington, then all of these graphs are going to reflect your selection over here. So it's going to have all of those pre-filters, those interactive elements that you have. You will ultimately be able to save this information as a Power BI file. You can add it to your own Power BI instances, because again, this is not a saved version. This is an ad hoc. This was created on the spot. If you want to use this in the future, then you are going to need to get deeper into Power BI. But again, if you're somebody that just likes to have a visual representation of your data with filters and all sorts of other things, that button at the top can be very, very powerful as well. So that is all I have today. But I really appreciate the time. I know we went a good 15, 20 minutes over, but I hope you found some value here, and certainly we'd love to talk to you about any of this functionality, any of the considerations for prior to projects, during projects, and after projects, and happy to discuss any of these little these little pieces of functionality that can have a big impact on your user adoption and the utility of your tool going forward. So again, I hope you all will join us in the boot camp so that you will learn about, well, how can I integrate with SharePoint? That's not that much more involved than what you saw in Outlook. What do I actually have to do to enable that D365 for Outlook application in my Outlook for my users? We're going to walk through that. How do I set up for the system to integrate not just my emails, but my appointments as well? We're going to walk through all of those steps, and we're going to empower you to create pieces of automation using Power Automate, using workflows, using some of these integration settings, etc. That's what the boot camp is going to focus on. So please do join us with that. Please reach out to Megan or myself for any questions that you might have about anything. We'd love to have a conversation with you. And really, thank you very much for coming today. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, Graham, and thank you again all for joining us today. Like Graham mentioned, we'll be sending out an email this afternoon with upcoming webinars and boot camps, so keep an eye on your inbox for that, and we hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.
Cheers.